Some money orders I mailed, and nothing ever came back. But the first package I got was a Cassie Wright pocket vagina, the premium limited edition numbered version, number 4,200. It was totally museum quality, mint condition, small enough that I could carry it to school in my jeans pocket, with my left hand tracing the folds and the soft hairs of her. In modern American studies class, I'd sit in the back row with my left fingers brailing, blind, deep in my pocket, until I knew every fold and wrinkle by heart. Ask me the state capitals of Wyoming or Phoenix, and I'd just shrug. But ask me anything about the pussy flaps of Cassie Wright, and I could draw you a map. That pocket vagina, you could press the clitoris and it would pop out, press it back in, the hood, press it again to make it pop out. I could do this until my fingers were red raw, about to bleed. I slept with it under my pillow. My teacher, Mr. Harlan, in my dynamics of science class, one day handing back papers, he saw the calluses on my fingertips, already cracked in dark pink, and he asked if I was learning guitar. I don't know. Let's just say that those hours and weeks of constant pleasure weren't doing Cassie Wright's vagina any good either. As the vagina started to break apart, I saved newspaper delivery money until I could send away for a previously owned Cassie Wright latex breast replica. I could only afford the left one, but anyone would tell you that the left one's the better of the two. Of course, it's too big to fit in my pocket, too big for anywhere except under my pillow. It's too big to do anything but collect dust under my bed.
It's hilarious, it's funny, but it's sad too, isn't it?
That's the goal, yeah.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
Why is that the goal?
Because the man who taught me writing, there's a man named Tom Spanbauer who teaches a lot of people writing. He always tells us that the goal is to make someone laugh and to make them feel a little sick, but by the end to break their heart. And if you can do all three of those things, then you've done your job. So.
You were reading from Snuff, your novel. Why did you choose especially this part?
I think that was the first scene I ever wrote of the book. And I had written that scene for the very first book I had ever written. And I'd thrown all of that book away except for that one scene. And I liked the scene so much that I knew I would use it somewhere else in a different book. So that was a leftover scene that was written maybe 10 years before I wrote Snuff.
Before you were a writer, maybe?
Exactly. It was one of the very first things I ever wrote.
Okay. Do you remember what made you write the scene in that days?
No, I really don't. I might, but I don't remember exactly right now.
You remember the day you started writing?
Not that scene. I remember that scene, I wrote it when I was in my first writing class, and the people in the class were so upset by it that the professor asked me to leave, and I was thrown out of the class for presenting that scene. And that's when I found Tom Spanbauer, the writer, the teacher that became my teacher. And I'm glad I was thrown out because Tom was a much better teacher. So I mowed lawns, I returned pop bottles for the deposit, I walked dogs, washed cars, raked leaves. Winters I shoveled snow, cleaned the black stinking crud out of roof gutters with my bare hands, washed St. Bernards. I hung Christmas lights and trimmed hedges. Night times, I would squeeze my breast replica, rub the dusty nipple against my lips, lick it, tweak it between two fingers until I fell asleep. I drained and changed the oil in big four-door, automatic tranny, old lady cars. Needing the money to buy a Cassie Wright replica, a fully realistic sex surrogate that makes you pretty much the bitch slave of every old lady in town. I don't know. I went trick-or-treating for UNICEF, and those worm-eaten, starving kids in Bangladesh, they didn't see one nickel of the $30 that folks donated. The day the brown package arrived in the mail, my adopted mom, she called me at school to ask, should she open it? Let's just say I panicked. I told the worst lie a kid can. I told her, no, I said it was a gift, her special secret Christmas present that I'd sent to surprise her. On the phone, I could hear my adopted mom shaking the box. She said, it's so heavy. She said, I hope you didn't spend a fortune. Shame. Shame on me.
What is Snuff, your novel, about?
Snuff is about 5 people doing desperate things to find love, to try to achieve love and express love in the world. And all 5 of them are involved in the production of a pornographic movie, which is attempting to set the world's record for the greatest number of men to have sex with a single woman in a single setting, one after another. And so the goal is to have 600 men have sex with the one woman.
A famous porn star.
Exactly. And her goal is that she'll set this record, she'll make a lot of money from it, but that secretly the process of making the movie will kill her, and she'll become legendary. These movies will be banned. No one will ever be able to make another one. And hers will stand for all time as the triumph, but also the lesson. She'll be a hero, but she'll be a martyr at the same time.
A martyr of?
A martyr.
Yeah, a martyr of what?
A martyr of feminists, a martyr of adult workers, sex workers, that she will...
Freedom of speech, freedom of...
Exactly.
Whatever.
Right.
Is that the First Amendment?
Yes, yeah. So she will no longer just be an old woman who spent her life making pornography. She will die and she'll become a legend. And she'll be able to leave a great deal of money to a child that she has in the world that she's never met.
And as you told me before, you found or refound or reanimated this scene you just read to me. Did you by then know that this novel, Snuff, would be in the end this novel? Or did it get along with you over the years and did it become a novel more recently?
It was more recently, because originally it was inspired by a documentary I'd seen about a performer named Annabelle Chong, and she created the first one of these gangbang movies, and she set the first record, and she established the structure by which all subsequent types of this movie were made. And so she really was a genius at organizing. And that's what I found most admirable about her, was that she could control and organize these huge crowds of men. And she was a very small Asian woman from Singapore. And yet she was really in charge of coordinating this enormous crowd event.
Crowd of men.
Exactly. So she was really like the shepherd who controlled hundreds of naked men and told them what to do, and at the same time wasn't sexually involved with each one. And so I love the idea of doing a stage play, because it would be very cheap. You would only need 5 characters. You would only need one setting, and you could suggest the rest of it.
It started from the idea of a stage play.
Exactly. And I wrote a play, and the play was not very good. It had one reading, and I was so unhappy with it.
Why wasn't it that good?
I tried to make it do too much. The first half was funny, but I tried to make the second half into a kind of a retelling of Antigone, and it was just, it was too much.
It was arty-farty maybe, or?
It was pretentious in the second part. And so I made it into a book, and that's what it is. Those lawns I mowed, the dogs walked, the cars washed. I told my adopted mom that all that work went into buying the best dream present ever, because she was such a great, wonderful, loving, terrific mother. And on the phone, her voice melted, saying, "Oh, Darren, you shouldn't have." When I got home, the package sat on my bed, heavier than you'd expect, a weight between a big library dictionary and a St. Bernard. My adopted mom was gone to her cake decorating workshop, and my adopted dad was at work. With nobody else in the house, I peeled open the box, and inside, all folded and wadded, looked like some pink mummy, leathery and wrinkled as a peat bog mummy from the National Geographic magazine. The online auction sold it as being brand new, a virgin. But the blonde wig smelled like beer, and the hair felt patchy where it was pulled out. The inside of each thigh felt sticky, the breasts greasy. On the bottom of each foot, I found the sort of stem that you'd see on a beach ball, so you could blow her up. I unrolled her across my bed and started to blow. I blew, and her breasts rose, they fell, they rose. I blew, and some wrinkles went smooth, but then came back. I blew air into the bottom of her foot until lightning bolts flashed in my eyes.
There are 5 characters in the book.
Mm-hmm.
Are you in one of these characters, maybe? Is there something of you in one of these characters, maybe?
If any of them, I would be in. There were three male characters: the young man, the middle man, and then the oldest man. And I would definitely be the oldest man, the kind of self-deluding person who still perceives of himself as a young person, and
like we all do, I think,
and still
in modern times.
Yeah, and tries to achieve the same success by doing the same things that they did as a young person, but for diminishing results.
And the female character? There's a Sheila.
Right.
Who is, in my feeling, commenting on the situation that you're describing in the book.
She is a kind of a bitter, angry organizer. But she's also basically the ingenue.
She is?
She acts as the ingenue in the story. She's the one that finds love with the juvenile. So.
But for instance, your letter say today it all comes down to the free will, and it comes down to the free market. Is that irony?
No, it's just a basic statement of I think it's just a basic statement of the situation, that when you, in the light of political rights, that you could argue that people have whatever right they choose, with their body. And that to prevent someone from making a movie like this is in a way to economically handicap them, to not allow them to use their greatest resource to earn their living. So I think Sheila just sees everything in terms of money and unsentimental politics.
She is not a feminist in the traditional way of thinking.
Or she is a kind of post-feminist, post-sex-friendly feminists who seem to recognize that women should have full rights to exploit themselves if they choose to. All those years ago, blowing air into my Cassie Wright surrogate, I almost blacked out before I heard some hissing, a faint, soft whisper of air escaping. After filling the bathtub with water, dragging the pink skin of her down the hallway, I held her under to look for bubbles from a leak. My hands spread underwater, holding her submerged, while her blonde hair swam around her face and her eyes stared up, dead, drowned. Bubbles swelled at the sides of her neck. Bubbles outlined her nipples and the flaps of her pussy. Wide half circles of little holes, leaking air, teeth marks, bites through her pink skin. My adopted dad's train set. He uses every plastic and glue that you can find. With her pink skin spread over my dad's mountains and villages of his plastic landscape, I dabbed rubber and epoxy, doctored with clear nail polish and acetate, until I had healed her every bite mark. From my adopted mom's dresser, the bottom of the underwear drawer, I borrowed a lacy honeymoon nightgown that had been buried there forever in layers of tissue paper. I borrowed the pearl necklace that my adopted mom never wore except at Christmas. Dressing the surrogate, I said every opening line from every Cassie Wright video I'd ever seen. Brushing the blonde wig, I said, "Hey lady, did you order a pizza?" Wiping my adopted mom's lipstick on the lips, I said, "Hey lady, you look like you could use a nice back rub." Spraying on perfume, I said, "Relax lady, I'm only here to check your pipes."
Is this book telling us something about your view at society, maybe?
Not necessarily. In a way, the book might have a lot of kind of porous or plastic political ideas in it, but really the book is about 5 people looking for affection, looking to be recognized, looking to be in society with other people. That they're 5 people who were alone until they came together. And even these awful circumstances, even this unclean, unpleasant situation, is better than being alone. So they might complain, they might be disgusted, but this is still better than being in isolation away from each other. And so it's 5 people coming from isolation into community.
And you said there are some remote political ideas behind the book. Could you elaborate on that?
I always look for for topics that can be argued different ways. And because the thing that can't be decided is the thing that lasts longest in the culture. I love the writing of Jacques Derrida, the French philosopher, when he writes about undecidability of things. That his metaphor for his best example is the zombie. And the zombie is the thing that looks and behaves as if it were alive, but it is dead. And so it occurs as a monster because we want things to be either alive or dead. And so the zombie has to be killed. It has to be resolved. And so I'm always looking for something like in Fight Club, the idea of consensual violence. If two people, two fully grown adults, agree to beat each other up, why shouldn't that be okay? Shouldn't people have the right to do this if they both agree to it?
And is there an answer to this question?
No, and that's what makes it such a compelling thing to do, is that it is unanswerable. And that's
so you like the unanswerable question?
Exactly. And they last longer in the culture because people will debate them and carry a greater energy with them. They can't be resolved. So they last longer over time. People just can't say, oh, that was a great book. There'll always be an argument, and the argument will sustain it.
And what comes out of the argument?
Energy. Energy and engagement and passion and debate, and people constantly wanting to kill the zombie. They have to be part of that conversation. They have to, in future generations, see the movie or read the book because they have to decide for themselves. It keeps it alive.
And how does this book relate to your other books?
All of my books are depict people moving from isolation into community. And typically moving into community first, and then moving into a significant bonded relationship with one other individual at the end of the story. So I think all of the books are romances in that way.
Are?
Romances. Yeah, they're people who have achieved an isolation at the beginning of the book that they are told should make them happy, but they're very, very unhappy in this isolation. And then they destroy their life, and then they build a new life with a person. So at the end of the book, they're in a way married. They're with someone. So all my books are romances in that way. On my computer was playing a pirated copy of World War I. And whatever Lloyd George did, I did the same. Pulled down the pink thong panties, unhooked the push-up bra. Lloyd and I were both laying pipe when Cassie's breasts go from a D cup to a C. By now my dick was bumping mattress. She was leaking, losing air. The faster I pumped, the flatter she went, from a C cup to an A, shriveling and wrinkling underneath me, wasting away. The more I pumped, the more Cassie Wright's face collapsed, caved in. Her skin felt loose, baggy, and slack. With my every push, she aged a decade, dying, dead, and decomposing as I hurried faster, pounding mattress, rubbing myself raw in my rush to get off. Pumping this pink ghost, this murdered outline down the middle of my twin bed. I never heard the door open behind me. Didn't feel the draft of air on my bare, sweating ass. I didn't turn around until I heard the voice of my adopted mom, her honeymoon nightgown, her Christmas pearls. On my computer, Lloyd George was blowing his load down the side of Cassie Wright's beautiful face. My adopted mom behind me, she yells, "Do you have any idea who that is?" And I turn. my boner stuck straight out, a pole still wrapped in pink latex, me waving a flag shaped like Cassie Wright, and my adopted mom screams, "That's your birth mother." And that was the last boner I would ever sprout.